President-elect Donald Trump speaking tonight to his supporters at the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Who would have thought? You run out of words to describe what happened tonight. We're joined once again by Brian Sobel. Brian, he was saying it's time for us to come together as one people. And it was interesting to me when you watched Donald Trump come out tonight. It almost looked like he was shedding a few tears. He looked humbled. He looked humbled. He looked emotional. And I think it was starting to dawn on him, I'm the president-elect of the United States of America.
Yeah, he said this is not about me, this is about us. So right away, is he going to hit the ground running? He's going to, what happens, Brian, in the first, 100 days? What will we see first?
Right, well, what we'll see first is he's going to start making cabinet selections and that sort of thing.
And you already mentioned Giuliani.
Yeah, Giuliani will be in the, Chris Christie, all these people who are incredibly loyal to him all the way along. Yeah. You know, he had defectors. Paul Ryan and others who,
big defectors.
Who came and went. Mitch McConnell, others. Christie and Giuliani, there from the beginning, never wavered. He will reward them both with plum assignments in the new administration.
Brian, what do you see the markets doing? The markets today went way down because of the uncertainty and the possibility of Donald Trump winning the presidency. What do you see the markets doing tomorrow and in the coming weeks?
Well, I don't know about tomorrow. They'll rebound. It's the election of a president, and uncertainty goes along with that, and especially tonight. I mean, when we started the night, did anybody really believe that at the end of the night? I mean, you could have believed it, but it was just a tall order.
It felt like such a slim shot.
Absolutely, and it was a slim shot.
The path to victory for him had to be perfect. I mean, all along we were saying that he had to get every swing state plus flip a blue state, and then I think as soon as the numbers started coming in, it was a much different story than I think most people expected.
Well, I think at the end of the day, the animus towards Hillary Clinton was a lot more than people knew or believed. And also, I think a whole lot of people were supporting Trump very quietly and just wouldn't tell their neighbor about it.
Brian, this was such a divisive campaign. There were huge negatives for both candidates.
Yes.
What do you see moving forward here? What do you see this first year of a Donald Trump presidency being like? Do you see the two sides coming together, or do you just see more divisiveness?
Well, remember, the House and the Senate will be Republican. The executive branch will be Republican. Donald Trump, once he mends fences with Republicans who defected, which he'll do, it's going to be his call. I mean, he'll get things like tax cuts. He may be able to reverse Obamacare and a lot of these other things.
And Supreme Court
and Julie, that's huge. That Supreme Court nominee,
there may be more than one.
And there might be more than one, but he gets to make that nomination. So, an historic night. We thought maybe we would see the first woman president in the history of the Republic, and instead we see an outsider who literally, one by one, beat every candidate he faced right to the end.
And he says he wants real change, and we'll see what exactly he can get done now. I mean, it's here, it's his mission, and it's happened. It's an incredible remark. You said your phone's blowing up. It's a remarkable night.
Oh, absolutely.
Brian, if you're the Democratic Party, what are you thinking tonight?
Well, I'm thinking that we should have probably had Joe Biden run. I think the negatives associated with Hillary Clinton, she couldn't get rid of them, and there were 4 or 5 things that she was always defending herself against.
Coming in tonight, we were saying that the Latino vote was going to play a significant factor. Do you think the Latino vote just didn't materialize as people were saying that it would?
Yes, that's the answer. I don't think it materialized the way people thought it would. I think African Americans probably did not come out in the numbers that the Clinton.
Why would that be? You had President Obama in North Carolina, essentially begging voters to come out, particularly Black Americans to come out, saying, this is your time, we need you. And yet Donald Trump ended up carrying North Carolina.
I think when the great debriefs are done, I think we're going to find that at the end of the day, Hillary Clinton did not resonate the way people thought she would with Latinos, Hispanics, African Americans, a lot of the people who have lost jobs in this economy and that sort of thing. She did not speak to them, and she could have pulled it out tonight. I mean, it was obviously a very close race, but I think there are a whole lot of people that supported Donald Trump, as I said earlier, who just didn't talk a lot about it.
What does Donald Trump
came out, though, in a big way.
Yes.
And when you look at the whole thing, we said it's been a long, bitter, nasty fight, and the country has really been divided. And now is a chance for Americans to heal, and he has to be the unifier.
He has to be the unifier, and Hillary Clinton, as we heard him say, called to concede. So it's important for her tomorrow and over the next few days to say, hey, I didn't win.
Brian, we already have, we're monitoring some protests going
Yes.
on in Oakland. We're monitoring some protests going on in San Francisco. There are a lot of people who are just furious that Donald Trump is the new president. I've heard people say, somewhat facetiously, I'm going to move out of the country. They think that the world's going to fall in.
Yeah.
What does Donald Trump do right now, beginning tomorrow, to try to calm some of those fears, to say, look, it's going to be okay?
Well, you know, he's at this point, he's the president-elect. He's got to drop the rhetoric that is divisive. So he could start by saying, hey, Hillary, as he did, Hillary Clinton fought a good battle. I wish her well in life. And drop the idea of the special prosecutor and all that sort of stuff, and say to the American people, Democrat, Republicans, you know, I'm going to lead all of you, and really mean it. If he means it and he tries to do it, I think people will accept it. You know, yes, there's going to be protesters and that sort of thing, but you know, this is America. We're bigger than that.
It's so ironic because at the beginning of the day, people were asking him, will you concede? And he's like, no, I want to wait and see how this plays out. And everyone was saying, you know, if he doesn't win, will there be a smooth transition of power? Now it's kind of the flip side. The Democrats are in the position where, will you accept a smooth transition of power for Donald Trump?
Right, and you know, there was word that he might sue and all that sort of stuff. You know, go to court. Now the question would be, would she do that? Accepting or you know, her call to Trump, if she did concede, then that suggests that she has read the tea leaves.
I know what it was like in the hotel room for Hillary Clinton as she was watching the results come in. This has been a dream of hers, well, presumably for the last 12 years at least, and probably longer. But, you know, she lost to Barack Obama. She had to wait for the 8 years that President Obama was in the White House. Thought this was her time. Everything looked like it was going to be her time. And then tonight, it's almost like Donald Trump pulled a rabbit out of a hat.
Oh, he did, and it has to be a crushing defeat, not just for Hillary Clinton, but for that Clinton apparatus. You know, for Bill Clinton, and frankly for Barack Obama, and because he saw that as, you know, a continuation of his legacy, and things that he didn't finish, he presumed she would. That's not going to happen now.
What do you think about Donald Trump's cabinet? So we were talking about Rudy Giuliani, we were talking about Chris Christie. Presumably, both of them have a spot in his cabinet.
Yeah.
Who else would you think might be?
Well, I think he's going to now go out to the loyal Republicans. He would be well advised to find people who have served in a cabinet before.
He would be a good defense secretary.
Well, that's going to be. I knew somebody to ask that. It's going to have to be somebody that he thinks has, you know, great experience. And some of the ones that you might think have already served, they've already left. They served in the Bush administration or others. He's not going to call them back into service. You know, he went this distance very much alone in many respects. And now he's got to send out the word, hey, I need a defense secretary. I need these various positions filled. Is anybody interested?
He's got to mobilize the right people around him. But the reaction, these people, if you look at this crowd here, these people, it is now 3:15 in New York City. They have been in this room for hours.
Absolutely.
Just waiting. They've been, essentially, you're on pure adrenaline at this point. But, I mean, what a moment, I mean, for these people. They've been waiting and waiting, and to think that it went this way versus the other way.
It's interesting how Donald Trump always said, I'm a winner.
Yes.
And you know, he proved all of us wrong. I know that when he first joined the race, no one, myself included, thought he'd get anywhere. When he won a couple of primaries, we still thought, but Jeb Bush is going to come on, or someone else. And he has just defied the odds the entire way. And you know what? He is a winner. He's won.
He has. You know, the three of us over the last 18 months have had dozens of conversations where we said, well, maybe this is kind of the end of the line for Donald Trump. No. Every time you thought he was done, he wasn't done.
What do you think this does for the Republican Party? Does it put a new face on the Republican Party?
Yes, because Donald Trump is a different kind of Republican at this point. He's not Mitch McConnell. He's not Ryan. He's not some of these other people. He is an outsider. You know, in the last few days of the campaign, when he was getting people to chant, drain the swamp and things like that, that's what he was appealing to, people saying, hey, Washington doesn't work for me anymore. And you, Donald Trump, can change that. Now the mission of changing that is going to be huge.
Yeah, he was speaking to the working families, the working men and women, the auto workers, the steel workers, and saying, I want to bring back jobs. And the Obamacare, I think that played into it. He really pushed that the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, he pushed that, and then just, you know, I think, again, the negatives around Clinton really just, they were just omnipresent. The Clinton Foundation, as an example. You know, how do you identify with somebody who makes millions of dollars?
And the FBI is still investigating the Clinton Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
So that's still ongoing.
Yeah. It's remarkable.
You know, we just want to tell you real quick, we touched on this a moment ago, but there is some concern about possible violence now that Donald Trump has won the presidency, and we want to let you know here that we are monitoring some protests in the Bay Area. We have several reports of small fires burning in downtown Oakland, and a crowd of about 100 people or so near the intersection of 12th and Broadway. That is right in the downtown area, right by City Hall. We do have KTVU Fox 2 crews on the scene gathering information. If we do get any more information, we will bring it to you during the course of this newscast. And also, just a reminder, our coverage will begin at 4 this morning with Mornings on 2. They'll have more on that. And, of course, this historic night as we look at Vice President-elect Mike Pence.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Brian, he played a really crucial role in this with Donald Trump. He was out there campaigning just as much, going to many states. Talk about what the appeal was here for Mike Pence.
Well, I think Mike Pence represented for a lot of people the counterbalance that was needed. You know, you had this guy out there kind of throwing rocks and all that sort of stuff, but he was the guy that kept saying, don't worry, it'll be okay. We'll transition this thing. He was the calming influence.
Stability.
The stability, exactly.
Brian, we saw so many things tonight that we didn't think we'd see. We knew the polls had it close, but particularly, for example, in Wisconsin, that really wasn't even on the table.
No.
And all of a sudden, Donald Trump seemingly comes out of nowhere and wins Wisconsin. What happened? Why wasn't that reflected in the polls?
Well, I think we are going to go through a period of significant analysis about what went wrong in the polling. Why was the polling so far off? Because as we were coming into this, Hillary Clinton had the pathway to victory pretty well sewn up. But, you know, Donald Trump, this guy that said, I don't like to lose, somehow kept banging away at it.
And Virginia was surprising tonight.
Yes.
She ended up winning, but by a very razor-thin margin, and that was Tim Kaine's home state. So even in a state where your vice presidential running mate, it's his home state, there for a while there it looked like it could go to Trump, but it ended up going to Clinton. That was a surprise. It did,
Julie, but when I was watching those results in Virginia coming in, that really caught my attention because, you know, you've got this is the home state of the vice presidential candidate, and it's squeaky thin.
That was the first real indicator tonight.
I agree.
This is not going to go quite
I agree with you. I agree with you. That was it.
Brian, when we look back on this election, I'm just picturing, you know, fast forward 20 years and the history books and what they're going to say about this election. Do you think that this will change the way political races are run? I mean, when we look at Bernie Sanders and how well he did, he was kind of the anti-politician. When we look at Donald Trump, here he comes out of nowhere and becomes our 45th president. And again, he was kind of the anti-candidate. He did things his own way. He was off script. Bernie Sanders was off script. Will this change, do you think, the way people conduct themselves when they run races?
It depends on what's going on in society and in the economy particularly. Well, what we learned was that the people who follow Bernie Sanders and those who followed Donald Trump had a lot in common. That was like heresy to even discuss that. But what they had in common was the government wasn't working for them. And so this outsider was able to make that case against the consummate insider in Hillary Clinton. And so, you know, I always think it's how is the economy going, a lot of other things that dictates how a campaign goes. But the big difference, Frank, I keep saying, is social media, just how instantaneously we are able to communicate a message. That's changed.
Yeah,
and we saw it full on this election.
Yeah, there were so many interesting things that came into this race, too, with the whole Donna Brazile thing, and maybe the Democrats were feeding questions to Hillary Clinton, and you look at that one instance, and then you say, could that have happened more? So I think that played into it. There were so many different controversies along the way. If you look back at all the controversies, whether the audio tape that came out from Access Hollywood, the email, the email server, the emails. What do you think was the biggest controversy over the last year that really had the biggest impact in this presidential race? Well,
I don't think Hillary Clinton could shake the email controversy. She had 5 others, but that one just kept reemerging. And when the Billy Bush tape came out, a lot of us said, well, okay, that's
we all thought that it's over.
Yeah.
There's no way he can recover from this, and yet he did. How is it that that's possible for him?
Well, I was told by a lot of people, men and women, well, so you're shocked about that? That's who Trump is. What we want out of Trump, however, is to get the economy rolling, to bring jobs back to America, to fix this immigration problem, to scrap Obamacare. That's what people were looking for, and they were willing to overlook
I think a lot the media underestimated the needs of the people, that they wanted those things changed.
Yes.
And they didn't take that all into account, because it seems like for a large part the media really got this wrong.
They did, and when you talk with people who have an axe to grind against the media, things like the Donna Brazile thing just help them understand that sometimes it doesn't work, perfectly, and there are these inside leaks and all that sort of stuff. And then it began accruing to Hillary Clinton again and again and again in the campaign. And I think people came away saying, hey, I don't know that we can trust her.
Brian, this is the first time we've had a president with no political experience since Dwight Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower turned out to be a pretty good president.
Yeah.
The fact that he doesn't have any political experience, how difficult will that make it for him to be president?
Difficult. I think he's got a big job ahead of him. Eisenhower, ran the war in Europe and was dealing in a kind of different kind of politics, military politics, and dealing with George Marshall and Franklin Roosevelt. But this person has all of his experience is in the boardroom. And so making that leap from the boardroom to the White House, is going to be difficult. But if he surrounds himself with good advisors.
I was going to say, you have to surround yourself with the right people.
Exactly.
And he's been a very successful businessman and has known how to get things done and how to, hire the right people. So we're hoping that's what he does in the White House.
Well, we should, as American people, hope that he has a wonderful 4 years.
What about foreign policy? How do you think after this election, foreign countries, and all that's been said, particularly by Donald Trump, I'm going to get tough, we're not going to be pushed around anymore, you're going to pay your fair share.
Yep.
How do you think he's going to get along with foreign leaders?
Well, reality will set in. For example, our where we are with NATO. You don't just kind of choose to get in and out and that sort of thing. We have obligations. He makes a point that we pay maybe greater than our fair share. Same with the United Nations. That's always been a big complaint. So he can work on some of those things, but he's also going to find that there's just a lot of stuff that goes on that you can't change too much. And he's going to have to learn to pick his spots.
It's going to be interesting to see, too, on the world stage, how the world reacts to a Donald Trump presidency.
Well, nobody wants to be on the bad side of the incoming president. So some of that rhetoric you were hearing in the run-up, I think it'll be toned down fairly quickly.
In your heart of hearts, did you ever think, I mean, we've been together now for, what, the past 18 months talking about this election.
Yeah. All the debate.
In your heart of hearts, did you ever think we would see what we are seeing tonight?
No. Just to be brutally honest, I in the early days of the campaign, I watched this guy just knock out one person after another, and I kept saying, okay, how's that happening? And then And then, you know, I was looking at the Clinton campaign, and she had all these ground forces arrayed across the country and all these smart people working on her campaign. But what I underestimated, to be brutally honest, is that at the end of the day, the American people have the final say. And the American people saw something in Donald Trump that they did not see in Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and the American people spoke out loud and clear.
Absolutely.
This night.
We'll get back to the discussion in just a moment, but we touched a moment ago on the protests that are going on in downtown Oakland. People upset about the election here of Donald Trump. We want to let you know that the 12th Street City Center BART station has been shut down. Also, we're getting some reports of broken windows, some small fires. Police are obviously out in force. All of this going on, if you're not familiar with downtown Oakland, 12th and Broadway is right in the heart of downtown. It's just about a block or so from Frank Agawa Plaza, where all of the protests, all the Occupy protests were. It's where City Hall is. So we're keeping an eye on that, and we have reporters out on the scene, and our coverage will continue at 4 this morning with Mornings on 2. We're going to be on all morning talking, obviously, about the election results, but also the situation there in Oakland.
Well, that's unfortunate.
I know it's disappointing. We hope that that doesn't continue.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's in a democracy, you know, the fact is it doesn't always go your way, and but you always hope that the president you know, accomplishes good things on behalf of the American people.
What does Hillary Clinton have to do right now, or what can she do right now to help heal some of the divide that there is? Does she have a responsibility, do you think, even though she has lost, to come out and try to help heal?
Well, I would hope that she would come out and say, you know, protesting or whatever doesn't get us where we need to be as a country. But it's going to take her a while to lick her wounds, and here's the reason. As you pointed out earlier, when this has been your dream, probably since you were a very young woman, and you finally got to the mountaintop, but you weren't able to climb that last couple of feet.
Yeah.
You know,
how do you think they will handle that in the morning? What do you think? I mean, because we haven't had anything like this before. We've never seen this, been in this situation. She did call Donald Trump tonight to concede.
Right.
Had to be one of the most difficult phone calls she's ever made.
The most, I would think.
What does she do then tomorrow morning?
Well, you know, it's interesting because you know, John Podesta came out and told everybody, go home, we'll catch up to you in the morning, essentially. She's going to have to come out and have a meeting with the media and say, you know, I looked at the numbers, and my people say there's no way to...
Do you think it was just tonight was just much too difficult? Do you think she was just not in the right frame of mind and she didn't want to get out and say something that she probably...
That's sort of my sense.
And then get out there and say something that...
Yeah, because I think by the time she had called Trump to concede, it wasn't much long after Podesta told everybody to go home. So I think...
Well, you kind of knew that was...
Well, I saw that as a kind of a half concession.
Right. So Donald Trump, one of the things that has made him so appealing to his diehard supporters is that he just speaks off the cuff, that he doesn't use the teleprompter, that he says what he thinks, he says what he feels. Sometimes it gets him in trouble, but you know what? They like him because, hey, he's saying who he is, and he's saying what he thinks.
And he's always stayed true to who he was.
Oh, yeah.
Right, but now that he's president, do you still see him tweeting out things at 3 in the morning, or do you think that the enormity of the office is going to hit him, and he's going to realize, you know what, I gotta rein myself in?
Yes,
But will he lose his charm by to his supporters by reining himself?
Yes, I think to be president means that you have self-control. So you're not tweeting at 3 in the morning.
And no Twitter rants.
And no Twitter rants. None of that. That you're much more scripted. Every move you make is scripted. When you're walking around the White House, you know, you're wearing a locator device. I mean, it's a different world.
He's going to have to get used to that.
He's going to have to get used to that, and it's going to be a different Donald Trump.
How do you think the fact that he is a businessman, and a very, very successful businessman, how will those traits help him as president? Again, he doesn't have political experience, but he has got some great business experience, and he's a very successful businessman.
Well, if he can do what he talked about in the campaign, and that is cut better trade deals and look at some of the treaties that we've signed that he thinks are, you know, benefit our adversaries or other people, then that probably breaks well for the United States. But what he'll find out is he isn't going to be the guy in the room doing that.
All right. Well, after a long, hard-fought battle and a long night of election coverage, we're wrapping up our election coverage.
Historic.
Brian, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And we want to thank all of you for joining us tonight on this election night 2016. Complete election coverage tomorrow on Mornings on 2 beginning at 4 a.m.
They'll also have the latest on those protests that we are tracking right now, including, you see here, some video of small fires and some vandalism going on in downtown Oakland. From what we understand, the 12th Street BART station has been closed because of a protest near Oakland City Center. That is just a block away from City Hall in Oakland. And protesters are also blocking entrances to Highway 24.
And we're also told there's a crowd of several dozen that have gathered in Berkeley. Mornings on 2 begins at 4 a.m. We wish you all a good night.